Hello, my name is Tate McCrell. My presentation is over the copper beetle. Here we have a copper beetle, and you can see, I will refer to later, those little bristly hairs on it. That's a key point of identification. It belongs to the Animalia kingdom, the Arthropoda phylum, the Insecta class, the order of Colepoptera, which is beetles with hard elytra wing cases. It belongs to the Dermestidae family, which is oval-shaped beetles who have scales or setae, bristles, which I just pointed out, and clubbed antennae. It belongs to the Trogoderma genus, which is considered the skin beetles colloquially, and its specific species is the Trogoderma granarium. It's also known as the cabinet beetle. It's one of the top 100 worst invasive species in the world, or it's considered to be. It originated in South Asia, possibly India, although I don't think they know, and it prefers warm climates. And you can see on the right there, that is a illustration of a copper beetle. They're stowaways, in that they are typically shipped here from South Asia or other countries facing infestations of them within their stored grain, because they like to eat stored grain or other dried products such as animal or plant products. They're pretty hardy because they can survive on low levels of moisture. The only stipulation is that it is warm enough for them. They're resistant to insecticides, specifically fumigants and surface insecticides, because they live in tiny cracks in the storage containers or within the facility. And their larvae can survive without food for up to 12 months, which makes them particularly hard to eradicate once they're here. They eat through a practice called dirty eating, where they nibble on a piece of the dried good and then move on, not eating it entirely, but just eating a little piece of like a bunch of the dried good, which ruins more volume than if they just ate the whole piece. And because they don't eat all that much, it's sort of maximizing their effectiveness of ruining things. And the contaminated grain can cause health issues in consumers and people just handling the products, causing skin irritation or GI distress. And they've got an indirect effect on the agricultural economy because they don't eat the plants when they're in the field or anything. They just eat stored, dried agricultural product. They were first discovered in America after being shipped over from South Asia, presumably in a grain or other dried good shipment in 1953. And upon their discovery and the realization of the effects they have, there was a massive eradication campaign which went on until 1966 and cost $15 million of taxpayer money. Since then, there have been isolated infestations in New Jersey and the American Southwest. I think there were a couple in the 60s, specifically 1968, and then it was discovered also in 1980, more recently. But both of those situations were taken care of, and they have been effectively eradicated on U.S. soil. And those infestations are identified by cast-off skins, the beetles themselves, less so, and larvae within the storage facilities, specifically the cracks, and the nooks and the crannies. It's a pest, and it's an invasive species. It ruins dried food and storage, as I said. And due to their long larval viability, their preference for tiny little cracks, and their small size, they're hard to identify, not to mention to eliminate. In terms of their physiognomy, their eggs are milky white at first, but turn a pale yellow. They're less than a millimeter in length and a quarter of a millimeter in width. They have one rounded end and one end with pointed spiny projectiles, or projections rather. And they're very small. And they're not identified by their eggs typically because they're just too small for us to even notice. Their larvae, as you can see on the right, are 1.5 to 2 millimeters long, and they have long bristles, which at first, in early age, make up more than half their length, but as they mature, make up less of their length. They're yellow-white in pigmentation, and their hairs are brown at first, and they grow to be a more golden or reddish brown over time. And their hairs are stiff and perpendicular to their body. That's a key feature of their anatomy, which is used to identify them. And they have barbed split-ended hairs as well, which you can't see in the diagram. Mature adults are identified by black to brown pigmentation with inconsistent reddish-brown splotches. Females are a little bit larger and a little bit lighter. But the key identifying feature is their 11 segmented antennae, 3 to 5 of which are the club end of it, and the groove in which the antenna fits on the pronotum plate. Additionally, they have wings but have never been observed to fly, and it's considered that they don't fly. The mating process involves mating occurring 5 days after maturity. Mature males live a week to 12 days. Unmated females live 20 to 30 days, and mated females live just 4 to 7 days. Eggs can be laid almost immediately if the temperature is warm enough, with a few day delay if it's cooler, and not at all below 20 degrees Celsius. And from egg to maturity can take either a month, or can take rather from a month to 220 days, depending on the environmental temperature. More suitable temperatures causing maturity to advance more quickly. To prevent them from entering the U.S., we examine our shipments for the larvae or the cast-off skins, the two major identifiable features of them. They're tricky because those features are also found in other harmless types of beetles belonging even to the same family. So we need to use microscopic examination. They sort of sweep the cracks and crevices just before dusk, because that is when larvae are most active. And if they're found, they use a combination of high levels of fumigants and surface sprays, which are ineffective, but they're sort of the only means. And then, according to entomologytoday.org, they are also utilizing high levels of heat, because it has been discovered that high levels of heat above the typical environmental levels can also be used to kill the beetles. Here are my citations. The University of Florida Entomology Nematology Department for one of them. Two sources from the USDA. One was more geared at people interested in invasive species. The other one was more geared at people who may be storing grain or other dried products. The Australian government is very concerned with these beetles, and so their Department of Agricultural, Water and the Environment had a section on the copper beetle. And then lastly, entomologytoday.org, which is where I got that last little tidbit about using heat to eliminate them. Thank you.